Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. I appreciate you joining me here for this episode. This is going to be a special one for me because this actor is tied very closely to some sensitive, emotional material from Stargate SG-1. And I'm interested to see where this goes and what he remembers. Some people are like, it's very surface details. And others, they tend to surprise us, and in some cases even more after we get to talking about the work. Things start coming up, and I'm interested to see particularly with Heroes. Mitchell Kosterman, Tom Rundell in Heroes Parts 1 and 2, who's the public affairs liaison either at Cheyenne Mountain or Stargate Command. I probably suspect Cheyenne Mountain.
Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah, there we go. And James Hamner, who was an ATF officer in a season 3 episode called Seth. Also an episode dealing with some very sensitive topics as well. Mitch, thank you for joining me on Dial the Gate. It means a lot to have you here, sir.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Folks in the audience, if you've got questions, submit them through our YouTube chat here, and they'll route them over to me and on the back end. Sir, what is going on with you these days? Can you tell me a little bit about your current industry?
Oh, I stopped acting in 2005. I did almost exactly 2 decades of it. And then I went to directing, writing, producing various projects. I'm still doing a bit of all of those things. Mostly that stuff you can't talk about.
Of course.
Until after it happens.
Of course.
But I also started publishing a film list because I started working as a consultant to various vendors, pretty much US companies wanting to move into the film industry in Canada. Most of the stuff that was in Canada up till about 2005 was locally owned by Canadian families, Canadian companies. And the larger companies around the world, not just, well, Great Britain too, started buying vendors and venues, particularly, studios and heavy equipment and lighting equipment rental type stuff. And they don't understand how to do the business in our country. They were prepared for that. So they needed liaison consulting with people who'd worked in the film business in Canada. And that was me. So I did that for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And then I just put myself out as a freelance consultant. And I've been doing that ever since. My latest contract expires this December 31st. And then I started publishing a film list called Pulse Production List. I believe it's the only decent, comprehensive film list to show you what is shooting in any given week across North America, how to contact the show and when it starts and when it finishes and who's involved in it.
Wow. Wow.
That's what I'm doing now.
Is this it? Is this the one that I've got here? Is this correct? Or am I not broadcasting to you? Are you able to see me?
No, I just see me right now.
Oh, you just see you. Let me see what I'm doing here. I just shared everything with everyone.
That's okay. It's called Pulse Production List, and right now it's at yvrproductionpulse.com, but it's going to move soon.
Oh, okay. Oh, I've got the wrong production list up. So you haven't been able to see me this entire broadcast?
No, I have in a little box. Yep.
Oh, okay. So can you see me right now?
Yep.
Okay. So this other website was not. Oh, it's the YVR production list.
yvrproductionpulse.com.
Sorry about that. Here I am. Okay.
There you go.
Very good. Got it.
Hey, that's it.
That's it. No wonder
that's my company.
Acting weird. It's like, no, it's not the right page.
And the reason for that is that I'm 67 now, and I really don't want to do any more work.
Right.
I keep track of this stuff anyway, just out of interest's sake. So it's not a lot of maintenance for me each week to update it. I watch it anyway. I got offered a project to produce a series that I can't talk about yet, but I will soon enough, hopefully. So even though I keep trying to retire, the world doesn't let me.
Take it from my dad. Don't, especially if you're plugged into something and generating revenue for something that you would do anyway. That's the sweet spot. Yeah. Find something that you would do for free and do it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I want to do things like travel, and I have to remind myself to go see my grandchildren and stuff. You know, I have a larger family than I had when I started all this.
How far are they?
About an hour
It's not too bad.
drive.
You don't have to get into a
Yeah, it's
plane.
not bad at all.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And something like this you can take on the road with you.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I could the publishing thing for sure. The consulting stuff, I still have to travel to cities like Los Angeles and Austin and um, Georgia, Atlanta. But I'm hoping to finish that up in December.
Hmm.
And with regard to the film list, well, I can do that on my laptop. And in fact, I spend the greater part of my year in Las Vegas and living in a hotel, and I just do it all through laptop.
There you go. Makes a lot of sense. What made you pursue acting? Where did that bug come from?
I have wanted to be an actor since I was about 6 years old. Um, eh, I did become an actor in school and right up to grade seven. And I played Bill Sykes in Oliver.
Scary character
I think we
if done right.
still have the newspaper clippings because they're the guys who were in that play with me. At least three or four of them are now still in the film business. Do you know Daryl Shuttleworth?
Name rings a bell. Yeah.
Daryl Shuttleworth has done hundreds like me. You know, he stayed in it though after 2005, so he's done hundreds of shows, and he's got a lot of stories. But anyway, he was in that play as well, and with my whole family in the watching it, and I loved it. The problem was that when I went to high school after that, it was the 70s, the mid 70s, and it wasn't cool to do establishment type things. For whatever reason, I
Hmm.
just didn't get involved in theater at high school, which was a big mistake. But as soon as I graduated and I started going to university, I wanted to do it. And I started getting involved in little plays and stuff. And then, like magic, the film business came to Vancouver. It was nothing I ever considered working in film, but it came to Vancouver. And we started, I think the first show I worked on, heck, I can't remember. Might have been, oh, it was Wise Guy. It's
Okay.
Wise Guy. Yeah, I think I had teeny little parts before that, like MacGyver or something. But the first time I had anything decent was Wise Guy. That's a good story.
Tell me. We're
You want to hear
here for
that
the
story?
stories. If they're thoughtful and poignant, yeah. If there's a or is you
But
saying that
don't you
that
want
was
to
the
talk about
story?
you want to talk about Star
We'll
Trek
get
though,
to
right?
Stargate. We'll get to Stargate.
Stargate.
No, I'm
Sorry,
talking. We're
shoot.
we're we're going for seminal details here.
Okay. All right. So I've done a couple little parts, like I said, that I can't even remember. I don't even remember if I ever had my own dressing room because I can remember arriving downtown Vancouver by this big hotel and the circus. You know, that's where all the dressing rooms and hair
Mm.
and makeup are. We call that the circus.
Hmm.
So the circus is parked in a parking lot across the street, and I'm not sure I'm allowed to park within a couple of miles there. But this woman sees me, recognizes me, which just blew me away. Recognized me. I put down my window and she called me by name, directed my car in, and gave me a dressing room. I never had a dressing room before. So that was pretty cool. And I'm trying to act cool. You know, I was a young man.
Sure.
I had a lot of experience in martial arts. So I knew they were hiring me because the stunt coordinator had recommended me to do a little bit of karate type stuff.
Okay.
So I met Bill Corcoran, the director, who I still know today. He said to me, "Oh, we got a karate guy on this show," and I said, "All right, you know, because you hear that everybody's a karate master, you know." And he said, "No, his name's Tony Morelli." Well, I don't know if you know, but Tony Morelli was the world champion kickboxer at the time, and he was like my idol. So
Ah.
I get a little bit upset when I talk about Tony because he died in a stunt a couple of decades after that. Anyway, that was really cool. I got to meet one of my heroes. And then
What a great
Mick Fleetwood
memory.
was on that show, and Debbie
Oh.
Harry, and Glenn Fry. Glenn Fry and I got along great. He was just a super nice guy. I was too shy to go visit him in LA. He invited me down there and gave me his phone number and stuff, but I have social anxiety problems, so I just
Yeah.
never did do that.
Yeah.
Um, and it was fantastic. And I got hired to kick Glenn Fry in the head and punch him or something like that while he's walking down the street with Debbie Harry. And Debbie Harry says, um, starts screaming and crying about, oh Bobby, because that was his name in the show, was Bobby. And that was really interesting. And a lot of new stuff had come to me fast. The stunt work, the being, getting close-ups, a lot of the hair and makeup, the wardrobe, all of that stuff. That was my first time for all of those big things. And it
Wow.
was interesting because it became a recurring character, and I got to go back for 5 more episodes. And I worked with Tim Curry. Jesus, Tim
Oh,
Curry. Oh, Tim Curry, we're stopping and there's a pause sometimes when the lights aren't quite correct. Usually the stand-ins go in, they get the light as fairly correct. Then the actors will come in and they adjust it a bit. Well, in Wise Guys are often like more than 2 people. You can always tell the budget of a show, how many people are in this shot. They'd have
sure.
like 5 or 6 people in the shot. So they've got more, like 2 or 3 cameras. They're trying to light so that they don't screw up the other person's lighting and
Hmm.
stuff. And there'd be these little pause. And friggin' Tim Curry would start singing in some echo chamber of a stage. And he would sing a frigging song. Can you believe it? I'm standing about 3 feet away from him.
And he just breaks out into song.
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. It was,
Wow.
and Jonathan Banks was super nice to me as well.
Good
Um,
actor.
he's a great actor and an amazingly nice guy.
Yeah.
I was studying Spanish and he saw a book that I had between takes and he came over and I'd never talked to him before. And he just started telling me about Spanish, what he thought about Spanish. I think he had a Spanish girlfriend at the time or something. He says, the most important thing you can say in Spanish? I said, What's that? And he says, "Mia pensar." And then what that means is I think. He says, you can go, "Mia pensar," and start any sentence you want. That was my tip from Jonathan Banks about
Oh, that's
Spanish and
great.
dating women.
Is there a role you've had over the course of your career that has stuck with you that you didn't expect or that you didn't expect would impact you the way it has?
Oh, you know the answer to that question. You're setting me up, aren't you?
No, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
always get a variety of answers. Very rarely is it a
Oh,
Stargate answer. Would that be Tom?
pardon me.
What would the answer be? Heroes, or would it be Seth?
Oh, are you talking about just Stargate or you're talking about my career?
Your career. I don't know any. I haven't seen much of your career other than the Stargate
Oh, okay.
episodes.
Well,
I don't know the answer then.
Smallville.
Smallville. Okay, I've seen the first 5 seasons and I watched them 18 years ago.
Well, I was the sheriff in the first 2 seasons.
Okay, tell me about
Yeah.
Smallville.
And that was interesting, but do you want to hear a Debbie story funny though? A
Sure,
funny Debbie Harry story?
sure.
Okay. So I have social issues. I'm not very good. It's a good thing we're doing this electronically because I'm better at this than I am in person.
Sure.
But one of the things that you do when you're an actor who has a bit of a role is you're going to go and try on some of the wardrobe that the costume designer has made for you, and you're trying it on. And often there are other people doing that, and they're just like screens between you and them. And you know that Debbie Harry is one of the most beautiful women on the planet. And remember, this is like 1984 or
She's in her
something like
prime.
that. She was in her prime. She was stunningly
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And I'll demonstrate how suave I am with regard to women. This is how well I played the game. Um, I could hear her talking on the other side, and I thought, geez, I know that voice. I think that's Debbie Harry. And something happened, and we got dressed and things like that. And then she flung the curtain back, and she said, "Hello." And of course, I'm stunned, right? I can barely speak. My
Why,
lips are just
hello.
quivering. Yeah, and I go, "Hello." And I like to tell people about this because this is my chance. This was my chance, you see, to spend some time with Debbie Harry. And she said, "Wasn't that you I was talking to last night in the hot tub at the hotel?"
Mia Pansar.
Naimia Penzar. You think about that. It should have gone a lot of different ways. But I said, no. She kind of rolled her eyes and pulled the curtain back, and I didn't speak to her until we were working again. So
So other than Mia Pansar, I would have said, I wish.
yeah, well, you would have at least carried the conversation on for a couple of
Yeah,
sentences
because
for
if I said
crying out
yes and
loud,
she would
right?
have figured it out,
Yeah.
I would have been in trouble. It's like, no, that's not what
Anyway,
we're
it would
talking
have
about.
been nice to talk to Debbie Harry for even a couple of minutes, and
Right.
I didn't handle it right. So,
Absolutely.
all right. So you asked me about things that had an impact for me.
Yeah.
The the two big ones was one was Smallville,
Yeah.
and one I played the bad guy in a movie called White Noise.
I have questions for
Fairly,
white noise coming up. Yeah.
okay, well, fairly quickly, White Noise put me in a position where I was torturing and killing women.
Yeah.
And
Ooh.
this is not something I had done before, and it wasn't something I was sure I wanted anyone, especially in my family, to see me doing. So I had to watch it very carefully.
Yeah.
But in one scene, there was a lady who was a victim, and gosh, Jay Brazeau's wife, I can't remember her name. I'm sorry. Brilliant actress, and she's sitting in a chair, and I'm supposed to be torturing her. And she says, "You don't look well." And I said, even through the makeup, right? I said, "I'm not well." I said, "This is really hard for me. I don't know what to do here. I'm gonna suck because I can't do the things they're saying in the script. I can't even pretend to do the things they're saying in the
They're
script."
so intense.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
violent and horrible.
Yeah.
And she said to me, "Well, you're not really doing anything to me." And I thought about it, and that didn't really help. And she said, look, this is what I do. I make it fun." And I'm thinking, fun?
That's a
How the
little
heck is this fun?
perverse.
She, she says, when you get dressed up as an axe murderer for Halloween or a
Yeah.
vampire or something like that, and it's Halloween and you're
Yeah.
playing with your kids and stuff like that,
Yeah.
how do you feel about that? I said, well, that's fun. She says, make this fun. Come at me as if it's a Halloween joke and you're trying to scare me.
Axe murderers are also vile. Yeah. Okay.
So I did. And from then on, it was easy. And I guess it was so good. I know this sounds horribly like bragging, but it never happened to me before. The very next day, I got a call from the producer of the movie from Gold Circle. And unfortunately, I can't remember his name.
It's all right.
Paul
It's been a
something.
few years.
Oh gosh, my memory's just going. Anyway, and he went on for quite some time about my performance. And that was the most difficult bit of acting I'd ever done in my life. And I was getting
Yeah.
praise from the producer.
Yeah. That was a note that freed you. So you
Yeah,
needed a mindset change and you didn't know
I
it.
did. And I didn't have to go away and practice. She told me that, and it just kind of set me free. And I was able to do the job, and I went away from it. In fact, that same producer came to the set and visited me on the set a week later when we were
Wow.
shooting something else.
You
And
really hit something.
so that's a highlight. And you said you
Yeah.
wanted something you weren't sure about, and it turned out really good. That's one.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, you got questions about that?
No, it's great. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm gonna just stay out
The
of
other
your
one
way. You're on a
was
roll.
the, the other one
Seriously.
was Smallville
Okay.
because I started getting there was a thing on the internet about the fact that I'd play more cops than any other person known to humans. And I tried shaving off my
It's the
mustache because I had a
mustache,
mustache.
Mitch.
Yeah, my lips kind of funny looking. I kind of looked like Fred Flintstone, so I had to grow the mustache back. And I started getting work again when I grew the
Yeah.
mustache back. But it was still a lot of cop roles. And uh, Rob Petrovich is still a producer here in Vancouver. I told him this story. He knew nothing about it, but I just told him like half a year ago. I had a new agent, and I was being a little more bossy with this agent because I hadn't been satisfied with the last one, and I'd had a talk with and a couple other actor friends of mine. They said, "Look, you have to direct your experience, and when you talk to your director, your agent, there's someone who works for you. You
Mm-hmm.
have to remember that. Give them instructions. Tell them what you want. That's what they want anyway." So I was talking to the new agent that I had, and she said to me, "Look, because I got to a point where I didn't have to audition anymore. I was getting jobs, and that's a very fortunate thing. Not a lot of
It's a
actors get.
blessing.
I know I never became a millionaire or anything like that, but I was lucky enough to work from show to show to show. for half a decade or maybe a decade without having to audition anymore. And auditioning is horrible. So it was pretty nice. And I just kept getting work. So she says, you got a call from, it was Warner Brothers at the time. You got a call from Warner Brothers. They want you to play a sheriff. And oh, sheriff. Okay. What's it for? And they said, well, it's based on Superman when he was a teenager. And I
Mhm.
realized it was one of these lower budget superhero type things they were going to make over the course of time. I think they made a dozen of them after that. You know what they are. You've heard of them all.
Yeah,
Um,
some of them are actually good.
some of them are, which was my mistake because I once again was, judging things I really didn't know enough about.
Hmm.
So I said, no, no, I don't want to do this. I'll make a long story a little shorter anyway. We had a few conversations, my agent and I said to her, uh, I don't want to do it, but I don't want to say no to Warner Brothers. And she
Right.
said, well, you could just ask them for a ridiculous amount of money.
Ah!
So you know where this story's going.
I can detect the punchline because you're in it.
She called me up and says, well, they took the offer. And I thought, oh,
Wow.
crap, you're
Thank
kidding.
God for that mustache.
I guess, yeah. So I went to do the first couple of episodes and I had like, morning, Jonathan. How are things today? And then Annette O'Toole would get some muffins out of the oven and I'd eat a piece of a muffin. That's how dramatic my part was. But it did turn into a good part. If you ever
Yeah.
watch the second season, I got to shoot Lionel Luthor and stuff like that. I had a
Yeah.
backstory and things. So
There's some
it
drama there.
improved and I got kudos from the producers and writers and it worked out really well. But I had a bit of a bad attitude about it when I first started. And I think that was the theme you were going for.
It just goes to show you never know
Yep.
what you're going to
You
get
don't know.
into. You think, I mean, you on the page it's there, but the players behind the camera are not necessarily what you might think. And
Yeah.
once you're on, once you're in the project, then
Yeah.
others start getting ideas too that spin off from that, and it just kind of can
Well,
blow into
well,
something else.
you can influence it.
Yep.
That's the thing that I didn't understand. And one of the biggest breakthroughs for me was after I did when I went to Smallville. Once again, I didn't really care that much. Things were going really well. I was a little bit arrogant about it. I might even have been kind of unfriendly.
Hmm.
Um, but I did my job.
Hmm.
And one of the things I thought of was because I started realizing they have all these guest directors and they're all relying on me. And I can't remember one, but he was one of the producers, one of the big producers too. He said, I was asking him a couple of questions about what I was supposed to be doing. And he said, Mitch, that's what we hire you for.
Hmm.
It was just, once again, I had just been thinking wrong. So many times I needed a good slap in the head.
I
And I thought,
Yeah.
I thought, oh, okay. So I stuck pretty much to the text. I almost never changed the text. But any subtext that was there and perhaps evident to any of the other actors in the scene, I ignored. And I tried to find something interesting, which is what you do in acting school. You always try to find something interesting. There's no other qualifier, right? Good, bad, ugly, fast, smart, slow, none of those things matter. Is it interesting? People are going to think it's interesting and enjoy it. So I started doing that and I ended up getting a bigger part. And then they made an episode based around me in the show. So once
That's
again,
right.
I'm an idiot. I almost blew that chance. And it was fantastic. And I never got more press. Back then, the lead actors didn't go to conventions. The
No.
lower actors like me did.
Yeah.
So I ended up in London, England at a convention. And it was really interesting because who's the guy who plays Reacher now? Uh,
Oh, it's yeah, he was Aquaman in
from
Smallville.
Florida. He played Ockerman in
Yeah.
Smallville. So he and I spent a week
Alan
there in
Richson.
London, England.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Alan Richson. Yeah, it's
Alan,
before he was in
right.
Hunger Games. Yeah.
Alan and I had a great time. That never would have happened without Smallville. But unfortunately, I was just exiting the business at the time, and I think,
Ah.
yeah, I wanted to go off on a high note, and I did a lead in a film. Um, Yeah, I wish I could remember the name of
Well, before we get into the
it.
thick of Stargate, Lockwatcher wanted to know what was it like working on such a large film with Michael Keaton and White Noise compared to your time in television?
That was not a large film. That was a $10 million film that grossed 50 million on its opening weekend. So it was
Wow, it became a
the
large
most
film.
success. It was the most successful film of the year, and it was top film for 2 weeks there in the winter. It was in the winter, not in the prime time in the summer, but it was the most successful film I ever worked on, and it actually changed Michael Keaton's career. He went back to doing big shows after that because he did such a good job on that movie.
Wow. I think I've seen
Yeah.
it. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have to go back and watch it.
You're getting kind of an impression here that there's a lot of chaos and you really never know what's going to happen. Could be good, could be bad. You just don't know.
Isn't it better than plotting your course and hitting it
Oh,
point for
hell yeah.
point? It's
Oh, hell
far
yeah.
more interesting.
Yes,
Humans have an interesting,
absolutely.
they've done studies on animals, you structure everything for them. They'll push stuff over just to find something interesting
Yeah.
happening. That's how we are
Novelty is
too.
important to us.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right, particularly to Americans and North Americans.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your first appearance in Stargate. This is a Jonathan Glasner episode called Seth,
Yep.
and it's a Jacob Carter heavy episode. A character that was introduced in the previous season who played Samantha Carter's dad. We find out that there is a connection between the goal that they are pursuing and a cult that there's a few of them in the United States. These facilities where people just go and lock themselves in on ranches and everywhere, and they do whatever it is that they do. And because of property rights, as long as it doesn't appear that they're breaking a law, they're free to do whatever they want. But there are these. I know. I actually grew up in a town where one of my teacher's daughters was sucked into one of these things,
Yeah.
and
There was a lot of press about them
yeah,
at that time.
yeah.
Idaho. Remember there was the big shooting where the FBI went in? Yeah.
I remember the one in
Dave,
Texas. The whole thing burned
David
down.
Koresh,
Yeah.
or yeah, there's a bunch of them.
So this is one of those situations, and you're playing an ATF special agent by the name of
Yep.
Hamner, who's been monitoring the situation.
Yeah.
What do you remember about Seth?
Well, it was a small part,
Yes.
but it set the tone for something that happened later, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, is about how writers like Bob Cooper from Stargate were paying attention to the newspapers. And yeah, we talk more about that when we talk about Heroes, because it became a very significant part of what that became. It started out as a one episode of a TV show, and it became something very different. But that's what my part in Seth was not very big, but I got an interesting story. I love telling
Please.
you the stories where things go
You
wrong.
don't have to ask me to tell them. Yeah.
So I'd worked with Rick Anderson before on a couple of a MacGyver and then a MacGyver spinoff, I think.
Mm-hmm.
In
Teeny
fact,
tiny little Canadian show.
yeah, yeah, it kind of lasted for a couple of years too, I
Yeah.
think, didn't it? Yeah. Following, yeah, that's right. We had a couple of those. Remember that one? What was it called? X something?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
something
pretty
with
popular.
you look through
Yeah,
these and pull
yeah,
out information. Yeah.
yeah. And now we got like the first of us or the middle of us, the last of us. Yeah,
You
that's
sure? I
right.
don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, that's funny, man. That's really good. But go ahead.
Anyway, so
What do you got?
I know I knew Rick, just from
Hmm.
around town and working on the odd thing. We'd bump into each other, and he worked at they worked at Bridge Studios there, which was
Yep.
the largest studio campus at the time. So they're often 3 or 4 shows shooting at the same time. So you'd bump into each other going to the cafeteria for
Hmm.
lunch or whatever, stuff like that. So I knew him, and my first moment with him is in this military kind of tent where a bunch of other military guys are around, and I'm trying to assert my jurisdiction and
I
tell him
love
what
this
to do
scene.
and stuff like that. So this is going to
This is
go
a
well,
great
right?
scene.
Anyway, everybody's just wondering what's he going to do, and we ended up getting the president of the United States on the phone, and he told me to stand down. So yeah, okay, I can do that. But funny thing is that the director, who I can't remember who it was, said, because they always like to introduce other actors, when they come in. So Rick was coming in because he
Bill
came in
Corcoran.
last.
Corcoran.
Was it Bill Corcoran?
Corcoran. Thank you. Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's the same guy who was directing Wise Guy that I just told you about.
There you go.
I still talk to him. He has, I don't know, man. He's done literally hundreds of episodic TV. Holy
People stay in your loops, but go ahead. I apologize.
Super nice guy. Anyway, so we're all we got our positions now. The lighting's all done. Everyone knows where they're going to move on action. And I've practiced kind of a quick wheel around that I'm going to have, because who's this guy coming up behind me?
That's
'Cause
right.
He says, yeah. So he says, no, we're not, or something like that. And so we get set, and Bill says, Rick, do you know Mitch? And Rick goes, oh, yeah.
That is so like him.
What the hell was that, right? So I don't know if that was what caused the problem, but there was a problem about 15 seconds later, because I was supposed to spin around to him. And remember, the proximity has to be, in real life, has to be unusually close in order for it to look normal on camera, right?
Because of how the lenses
kissing,
are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I spin around and put my full weight right down on the top of his foot. It didn't register on his face. He said his lines. They said cut. We had it in one take. And everybody's all quiet because a few people saw what went wrong. And I was facing the other way, so I was probably like this, right?
So you were hurting his foot.
Yes. And so I take my foot off his foot and I go, I want to say sorry or something like that. But he goes in a very loud voice, ow. Cast and crew all laughed up. And then he just smiled at me and walked away.
I'm going to have to go back and watch it because it's in the print then. It's got to be. So that's funny.
So so just think about it. When he's saying those lines over my shoulder,
he's thinking, ouch.
I'm standing off with my full weight on his foot. Because I can't change my weight, because that'll adjust the plane of focus. I'll go out of focus. This focus puller will want to kill me because I've just gone back the other way.
That is a great example of two professional actors.
Well, you don't want to be the guy who says cut or breaks his character. You don't want to be that guy. You want to hear cut.
Like, oh crap, I'm so sorry. We got to go again. When there's 100 people waiting on you to get it right, and time is money.
Yes, literally 100 people. Yeah.
Yeah, that is wild. Man, oh man. And that was a dreary episode. That's one of those where it's like, it's raining in BC the whole week. We're going to go out there and do this in the rain.
Oh.
And it's very atmospheric and very cool to watch that. So, but it must have been hell.
Yeah. It is. It's horrible. Like I don't live in Vancouver usually, except in the summer, because this is where my family is. But I come and visit a little bit through the winter.
Where are you now?
But it gets, pardon?
Where are you
right now?
Uh-huh.
Right now it's 27 degrees and sunny. That's Celsius, so whatever the heck that is.
What province are you in?
British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, you are in Vancouver. Okay, got it.
Yep. It's a beautiful city here, and that's where my grandkids live.
Gotcha.
I don't know what I was going to say about that.
No, we were talking about the weather.
Oh, I was going to say that a cloud moves in about September 30th, and it stays until about April 15th.
Yep.
And you get quite literally week after week after week where the cars all have their headlights on during the day.
Never go off. I routinely went up to Vancouver for Stargate functions in the spring and summer, but only once in the winter. And I rarely remember a time it stopped raining and we were moving props and set pieces and costumes in the rain. That was an experience.
No, and it doesn't matter as long as you're shooting in the studio.
That's it. This is true. Absolutely.
When you got to go outside.
It's not generally a downpour, you know. We get 10 inches more rain in Nashville than you guys do per year, but you get more days of rain.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, because when here the street floods in 10 minutes. So that is
We have
absolutely
missed.
wild. That's right. I love South. I love the stories of a father and son redemption. There's two of them there, yeah, I love that moment of you. Yes, Mr. President. All right. So he turns around and he's like, I guess you're Commander in Chief's boy. Whatever,
Yeah.
man. So, but I love Jack's answer is that, okay, there's some technology in there that we really don't want getting out yet, which is correct, but it's like 5% of the answer. It's
Yeah.
a great line. Good
Yeah.
episode. And how does
I thought
this
so.
fold into
My purpose.
Heroes? Yeah.
Pardon me?
How does this fold into Heroes?
Well, I tell you, I've got so many embarrassing stories. I'll try and tell you another one. Ask me about Bob Cooper. Um,
Robert C. Cooper, executive producer of the series,
he was a
prolific
writer.
writer on the show.
He was a
And,
writer. That's how he got the producer credit.
Yep.
That's the way it works.
Yep.
Usually, when you get a producer credit, especially if it's below the line, that happens because you have contributed in some other way.
Yep. Yep. And how does tell me about Robert C.
Well, I want to wait on that because what didn't we just ask something about heroes? Oh, I don't know.
You were saying that there was a story that was going to come up that was threaded through this episode, and I'm curious
I
to know
don't
how
know.
they connect. Unless there's something else that you want to cover.
Oh,
before we
that's
do.
what I was going to say. Yeah. Well, the whole we started making one. It was a single episode,
Oh, so
right?
we're on Heroes now.
On heroes.
Yes.
It was a single episode. However, much like what you were talking about with regard to Seth, it was about current events filtering into this TV show that's supposed to be about space, right? And that's what really made, in my opinion, all the best episodes. So Bob Cooper was writing this episode. But every single day that we shot, and Saul Rubinek was completely into his character. He's that kind of an actor.
Yeah.
Not much fun to be around, by the way,
He's
but a
intense.
terrific actor.
Yeah. It comes
But
out on the screen.
it does. He wanted to be that guy, and he had a level of commitment that I had never been that close to before. Um, and he delivered those lines that Robert wrote, and he said, "This shit is coming." I remember one day he said it really loud. The whole crew stops and listens. He says, "This shit is coming right out of the fucking newspapers," because Afghanistan was going on at the time. And it was the first time, I think, that journalists had ever been embedded with combatants at that level.
Oh, at that
So we
level.
were,
Okay.
yes, they were right there documenting everything. I mean, the United States dominated the areas that they were in, so it was deemed to be a little safer for them, I guess. But on every medium that you can think of, there were people there physically on the ground in Afghanistan writing stuff back. So the nature of what we read in the newspapers and saw in the newscasts changed in about 2 weeks. And this was something that we were witnessing as we shot this show. So I just thought that was really interesting too. It was obviously it was a theme throughout Stargate to pay for Bob Cooper in particular to pay attention to what was going on around in the world. And Andy Makita, who was the director of that show, he was also one of the producers. And I knew Andy when he was second AD or third AD. We've known each other for decades.
Yeah, he started off as an AD on SG-1 and was one of 16 or 17 people who went all the way through to the end of Universe with Gauntlet.
There you go.
We can approach this thing and pick it apart however you want, but this is a rather big, meaty thing that I want to approach here. Rob said one of his chief inspirations was, I think it's a two-parter of MASH. Where a camera crew comes in and
right.
captures the
I
unit.
remember that.
And it did start off as 1 hour and became 2. How many months did you end up shooting that? Because it was picked up in pieces. I'm not sure if all of your stuff was shot fairly quickly or if other parts weren't. What do you remember of watching this thing evolve and grow from what was really, 62 minutes of, God, all of this is great, to becoming a 2-hour thing where Bob Picardo comes in and picks up a second half of it for other footage.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is it was a single episode. and it had an ending that was already written, and we shot it. And typically, a good series, hour-long series, would shoot in 8 or 9 days, maybe 10, maybe with a few pickups after that, second unit stuff, a stunt or an explosion or something. But that's basically how big it was. The cheap, crappy shows shot in 6 or 7 days. So,
Crappy shows. Cheap shows, maybe.
yeah,
Crappy, well.
yeah, lesser well produced.
They're all pretty.
Anyway,
Come on.
so we started working on this thing. Events unfolded in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right at the time we were doing it. Saul Rubinek, the maniacal genius, invested himself into that character like I've never seen anything before. And Bob Cooper started writing some amazing stuff that was a very clear reflection of what was going on in the world, which meant it was going to have more significant impact on any audience that watched it. I truly believe that is always the case.
Mm-hmm.
If you actually hit on something that's true, your audience is going to see it and feel it. Anyway, so we started working on it, and every day, Saul's got like a handwritten script from Bob, and Bob's on the set, which is not usual for a writer. He's on the set every day, and he's writing new stuff. And they're coming up to me and saying, okay, we're not going to say this, just listen to what Saul says and respond accordingly. And that's what I did.
This hallway scene.
Yeah, that's a good example of exactly what happened.
It's a showstopper.
I was actually pissed off because you want time to rehearse. I'm terrified that I'm not going to do a good job because I don't get the chance to come up with my good stuff. But Saul said, and we'd been outside talking about it because the trailers we have are outside on that lot. And he was never very friendly to me. He always talked down to me. But that's okay because of the character. It was perfect for the character.
He's living in the character, yeah.
Maybe if I met him today, he'd be completely different. But
He's
that
such fond
character,
memories of that episode, yeah.
Yeah, it was brilliant because what it did was, and this is always the case for anything in film and television, is when the emotions become real, the camera reads that and the audience sees it. So what you're trying to do always is to come up with some real emotion. And if you're like the movie star who's usually just says, yeah, that's, some kind of crap like that, then you're going to get away with not really having to invest yourself much in the character or the moment. However, you saw the drama in that. And that kind of drama only comes from committed actors, great writing, and a crew who'll get the hell out of your way.
And the scene
and photographics in a way that enhances it and does not take anything away from it.
Absolutely. This is a scene that is really teed up by Amanda Tapping. And
who
Saul
still works here, by the way. She's
absolutely
producing and directing a TV series here just in Vancouver.
That's right. And Saul comes in with the 5-iron and hits it into the hole. I can't imagine being around Amanda in that sequence because, in some respects, the more that I think about it, there are significant scenes and episodes where the show pivots. There's one where O'Neill leaves the galaxy and talks with an alien race. The show pivoted there, and the show also pivots in this hallway, I think.
But Amanda was brilliant, don't you think?
How was it being around that when you have an actor who is genuinely emotionally providing something, and they walk through the scene and leave everyone speechless. And then you have Saul Rubinek come in and say, you turn that camera off when I tell you to turn it off. And it's so disarming. I mean, I can't imagine you're standing there just eating it up. You've got it like oh, this is good. But you're supposed to be almost like not castrated, but like being hit,
emasculated
in some respects, professionally. Yeah, because you're not stopping him because you can't really argue with what he's saying, even though you do have your own perspective inside the Air Force. Go ahead.
The way to handle that is to let that emotion hit you, feel it, don't hide it. If anything,
Yeah.
you want to amplify it a little bit.
Yeah.
So go ahead and feel exactly that. That's what creates the drama. Ask me a question about Smallville later, and I'll tell you how that doesn't always work with other actors. But
Of course.
smart actors will, and I wish I could talk to Saul about this because I think I did get right on it. I really started to go with it and I liked it. Now, I was actually, believe it or not, this is bizarre. Because they ended up having to shoot another few weeks. I think we even came back another time after that and shot the burial scene and stuff. It
Yep.
went on and on and on. I had other shows that I was supposed to go do. And at one point, there's a big island off the coast of British Columbia here, not too far from Vancouver, about an hour away. Such a big island, it's almost its own continent. The countries that are smaller than this island, it's so big.
You talk about
It's called
Vancouver Island?
Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Vancouver Island.
Vancouver Island, city of Victoria.
Hmm.
Anyway, I was, without a word of a lie, for the whole 5 days of that week that we were shooting, the second time we'd gone back to shoot Heroes, and they decided that they're gonna have this second half to it. I got on a helicopter, which not something very common for me,
Yeah.
and flew over to Vancouver Island for 12 hours of each day. This was the deal we worked out. And then I would fly back to Vancouver and shoot on Stargate for the other 12 hours. And I did that 5 days in a row. Now, just remember that actors, a lot of times, if they're not on set, they have a dressing room, they can sleep. So I did get sleep. I got
Yeah.
sleep on the helicopter, I got sleep in my dressing room. So they wouldn't want me super tired. The other show never would have agreed
Right.
if it didn't work out perfectly, right?
But also, I think it works because Emmett is exhausting you.
Yeah, there's nothing that didn't apply. He
That's
was
right.
wearing me down. Yeah.
There is something about, and we've spoken a little bit about like his attitude towards other performers, which I think is just perfect for this role, because he's very much like a Ken Burns type of documentarian and storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
There was, and I asked Saul about this when I got him on. I was like, "What is?" And he was just like, "Well, that's just acting." I'm like, "No, that's you," and
Yeah.
he wouldn't pick it apart. There is something about his energy where he's got the script, it's a straight line, and he's doing this.
Yes.
And he's
Well, I'll
coming
tell
back,
you
oh,
this.
what about that? That's interesting. And then dials it right back in. And he's making up the dialogue as he goes along.
Yes.
And we know that it's written, but what he's saying
Right.
isn't.
Well, what's interesting about that, the most important thing to me is, and we'll talk about we should talk about Smallville
Yeah,
in that regard because I had learned a lot from Saul.
yeah,
Was that if you say a line wrong, even one word wrong or mispronounce anything, there's a script supervisor on set standing over by the director, and she or he will come over and say to you, actually, it's blanc, not blank, or whatever. And now you have to do it again. They have to do it again because of you. You're not a very popular guy.
well, especially in sci-fi, they have to have it just so.
Yeah. But with regard to Saul's way of dealing with this, he never said it out loud, but I'll bet you he would say this: if it's better,
Yeah,
they won't care. The
yeah,
director will just put his hand on the script supervisor's shoulder, moving on to the next shot.
that's right. Or
That
in some
freed
cases,
me.
that was interesting. Oh, that freed you.
It freed me. Well, not I didn't learn it on that set, but
Right.
when I did learn that, it freed me and it gave me a new lease on life in Smallville, really.
I've got a pin in that. We're definitely going to
Okay.
hit it.
Well, I
Um,
believe to a certain extent, all good actors do that.
yeah.
And you don't have the lead actors who are being relied upon by the people who hired them to make this movie a good movie have far more leeway than the other 98 people acting on the show.
Yeah.
But
I think
Saul was right. If you made it good, as long as it was good and you were committed to it, it stayed in the script. And I learned that for the next 10 years of my
yeah.
life. It stayed in.
Wow. I think
Yeah.
that the defining characteristic of a good actor in that context is to know when to change it and to know when to keep your mouth shut in
Yeah.
terms of letting
So
in
you
other
got to know your
ideas.
character better. You
Yeah.
have to have done your homework better. You have to committed to it. You have to explore alternatives. You have to work harder. That's it.
How do you stand across from that? Just praying that he's not going to, derail your line of thought, or just
No,
make sure that you go in knowing these lines backwards and forwards so that when he comes back onto the train track, you can
right.
continue to execute.
Well, he
Because I'm
gave me
watching it. I don't know
liberty.
how you did it.
I don't, well, he gave me liberty.
Oh,
I just, I just behaved the way I thought that guy would. And it wasn't too complex of a character.
yeah.
I just listened to what he actually said and responded. I didn't even try to hit the dialogue in the script. I didn't even look at it. I listened to what he said.
Yeah. You're barking back at him about, he's putting your job at risk.
Yes,
This is national security stuff that we're dealing with, and he's leaving his freaking camera on in
exactly.
heavily secured areas.
Yeah,
This is the most. It's ridiculous. I would be
it is.
pissed at this guy, And I love this
Exactly.
through line from the beginning of the show to the very end of the second episode. You can call me Emmett. Yes, sir. All right. You're not letting him in.
Yeah,
And the last line, one of the last
yeah.
line in the show, because he turns and goes, Tom, Emmett,
Yes.
he's let him in because
Wasn't
they
that
all
beautiful?
watched the tape. I'm getting goosebumps.
It was
They've all
beautiful.
watched the tape
It
and
was
they've got
absolutely
him now.
beautiful.
Yes, he's an
Yeah,
asshole, but yes, he is brilliant. Even Hammond admits that he's wrong.
yeah. And his character being an asshole and me not liking him and resenting his intrusion into my life was played it played perfectly off the way he behaved to me as with our trailers side by side.
Wow. You come in.
It wasn't that usual an experience. It was unusual in a lot of different ways, but it did open a big door for me in behaving a different way from then on in all the acting roles that I had after that.
You have a very heavy scene. Um, making the
In Smallville?
reveal, no, I'll get to Smallville. You have
Oh,
a
sorry.
very heavy scene making the reveal after we've just seen the camera footage.
Oh, oh,
When you were before I get to it, when you were filming this,
yeah.
was it pretty crystal clear how powerful and important a show this was going to end up being when it was in the can?
Yeah, I cried my eyes out. I don't think they got a good shot of that.
Yeah.
But Terrell Rothery
Yep.
uh, is a good friend of mine. She's my agent's wife.
Okay.
And while talking about her dying, it was brutal.
Right.
So once again, real emotion counts for so much more than anything you can pretend, right?
Yeah. You
So I just leaned into it.
you come into that room. O'Neill's the mission report's just been declassified. Daniel's tape is put into the tape player, and
Right.
we see her die.
Yeah.
And your line, O'Neill's alive, so is Simon Wells. Dr. Fraser didn't
Yeah.
make it. Oh my
Another good. Yeah.
God. You can tell
Yeah.
they all loved Fraser. They all loved her. She was
Yeah.
responsible for all of them.
Yeah.
Pulling that line off, man, you nailed it. Because you could have played it a
Thank you.
hundred different ways.
Well, I had it. I had a sincere commitment to it, exactly the way I said it, and I meant it because obviously I just imagined my friend being dead. That wasn't hard. Um, what's interesting about it is that there's always a discussion about what we call blocking,
Yeah.
and that's about where you physically are.
Yep.
And then there's the handling of props and stuff like that. Well, understanding what you understand about the mental commitment of acting, do you want to take some of that brain power away and put it into where you stand or having an actor asshole step on your foot or you don't want to give that up. You know what I'm saying though, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to give that up. So in that scene, I was supposed to exit the other way in the room. And we did 3 takes on it. And Andy Makita just put his hand on the script supervisor and just says, okay, we'll make it work.
You couldn't get through it.
I couldn't leave what I was feeling enough to remember my blocking in that moment. Maybe if we did 3 or 4 more times, I would have got it. But in that moment, I was so committed to the emotion that I had of my friend dying. This is what happens to you when you become an actor. You got no shut off now. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, you know what I'm saying.
The um the blocking is irrelevant when it's real.
It is, because the directors picked up a way, decided a way that the action has to move in order for him to splice it to the next shot. So all Andy had to do in that moment was think, I know somewhere else we can go. We can cut to the picture on the wall. We can cut to a picture of her. We can cut back to this, whatever.
Yeah, he's got all the pieces moving in his head. Yeah.
Yeah, he probably had like 6 or 7 ideas in a moment. He thought that was great. This is a perfect take. We're not going to mess that up by trying it again. Moving on.
That's right. Yeah.
That's it.
You guys made a 2-hour episode of television that many fans to this day, have trouble watching.
Oh.
And they have to get emotionally prepared for it if they do. Some of them won't even watch it. I know
Really?
Terrell has never seen it. And I think that that's a shame. Because I think that it's her finest hour.
It's a
she won't budge.
Piece of work. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can understand that. I'll never forget her saying, yeah, Rob called her, she was in her kitchen. And she's told this story a couple of times, but Rob says on the phone, how would you feel if we killed you off?
Yeah.
And Terrell was like, how would I feel? How do you think I would feel, Robert? She loved Janet. But you have to understand, the show was done. It was done. Atlantis was going to take over. There was no seasons 8 through 10. So I understand the choice that was made. But the choice that was made a meaningful, impactful moment that has lasted since the show's run, and just clarified how important the work that these people do is to protecting all of us. She gave herself for that airman. We don't leave our people behind. We go out there and we bring them back.
Well, you got to know
their remains.
Yeah, and you got to know that we, the actors, when you have something that's important, and if you're going to do a good job on it, you are, just like you just said about Terrell, you are feeling that emotion.
That's right.
It was great that lady helped me play Halloween when I was the torturer guy, because it just had a perfect parallel and it worked, right? Yeah. But in most cases, you are feeling those feelings. And sometimes it can be horrifically painful.
That's right. That's right. I think that's the transcendent power of this medium. That's when it truly becomes art. It's not just content. Mm-hmm. You were saying that the communication that you had with Saul, as interesting as it was, left you with something that you were able to exercise later in Smallville. Tell me about that.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you about it. But first of all, I'll tell you where Saul and I parted ways is Martin Scorsese, because I don't like Martin Scorsese's directing style, and he did. So you just get some. I'll tell you a funny story before. Can I tell you a funny story about Stargate before we move on? Okay,
please.
This is one that I always wanted to tell, because I've told you that I'm autistic, right?
No, you didn't say that. You said you had social anxiety.
Oh, I'm autistic.
Okay.
Okay. So one of the things about autistic people is, I won't go into a big long spiel about it, but autistic people out there are going to tell you, is that when you have conversations, like when you and I finish this interview, for example, I'm going to relive it, and I'm going to feel pain about how I said things that I should have said differently. There's just no reason in that. There's no way you can get away from it. Mm-hmm. Because we know from experience, that's why we make good actors. We're always faking who we actually are. But we know from experience that every day when we go out and we say stuff, we often say stuff that, holy shit, we just want to reel that sucker back in right now.
But it's too late. It's out there.
It's too late. It's gone. Yeah. And my family will tell you many, many stories about the thing. My boys think it's friggin' hilarious. They call it dadisms, and they call up and they remember that time? No, I don't want to remember that time.
Yeah, but anyway, it was painful for me. Thanks a lot, kid.
It was pain. Exactly. It still hurts. I got wounds.
Yeah. No, you have a visceral reaction to it. It's business that you haven't digested all these years later.
That's right. I haven't dealt with it. Yeah. So I got Andy Makita, who I've known for a couple of decades. I think he's one of the nicest, smartest, most wonderful people there are on the planet. And he invites me to come and make this show. And I was so happy to do it. And Bob Cooper, I met, he was super nice guy, let me talk to him about the script, and he was changing the scripts, and we're looking at it and getting involved in ways that I never had before. Um, oh, they had to get special permission. Andy had to get special permission. He himself made the phone calls for me to have a mustache, because you're not allowed to have a mustache in the United States Air Force.
Didn't know that.
Yes, I have a mustache in that show.
Yeah, of course
But
you do. Yeah.
Andy
The
liked the
Navy
way
had
I
it. I
looked.
assumed you could have it. Has anyone watched Top Gun? Goose? Hello?
I don't know. Those apparently the United States Air Force at the time
Wow.
this was shot did not allow facial hair of any kind.
Yeah. And the Air Force is sponsoring the program.
Yes. Yeah, they endorse it. Yeah. We
Yes.
get to use all sorts of language and shots of their exteriors and stuff like that. Anyway, what were we talking about before? Oh, Bob Cooper. So Bob Cooper is unlike any writer, typical writer, anyways, on set. And he's stretched out like this, and he's writing, and the stuff's coming in from Fallujah or wherever, and he's working on this stuff, and then
He's
he's handing
supine.
pages.
He's on his back.
Well, he's lying back in a chair.
Oh, okay, he's in a chair.
He's like this. He's in a chair and he's lying way back, his legs stretched out. And he's handing pages and he's talking to Saul. It's just crazy. Anyway, so Stargate had been around for a long time by then. What were season 7?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So me, the arrogant bastard, you're always planning what kind of shows you want to work on. You're trying to steer your career.
Yeah.
Later on, you realize you really didn't have much control at all. But at the time, you think you're making decisions and you have some kind of control. So if you can go get the DVD that they have for season 7, and it has what do you call that track when the director and
The
somebody are
commentary.
talking on? Yeah, the commentary track. Okay, listen to it when Andy and Bob are talking about me, because Bob will tell you, and this is true because it was one of those things where as soon as I said it, I just wanted to reel that sucker back in. I'm walking by him. I'm reading some of the pages because I needed to see it too, because it was between Saul and me, right? Saul had most to say, but I always got to see the pages as he wrote them. So he handed them to me.
You're his handler.
Yeah. So I'm reading it and I'm making decisions quite quickly as I'm walking away. And I said, geez, Bob, this is good. Trying to be complimentary, trying to be a nice guy, right? Should have stopped there. And I said, he kind of nodded thanks or something like that. And I said, if I'd known your show was this good, I would have auditioned for it sooner.
That's funny. That's funny.
And on the commentary, he says to Andy, he says, I think he was trying to compliment me.
Rob Cooper is very hard to read. He's very dry. I went for years thinking that he didn't like me, and I was wrong. So I'm sure he thought it was funny, and he was relaying it in his dry way, because that's who Rob is. He's very deep, and still waters run deep. So,
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
He's very smart.
Yeah.
I'm sure he thought that was funny, but he's not necessarily going to show you.
Yeah, he
So.
did chuckle.
Right.
And,
But that could be an
Andy's-
irritation chuckle or a funny
yeah,
chuckle.
I don't know.
So
What
that's
an idiot
great.
chuckle.
Yeah, they would. I don't think they would. There are stories that I will take to my grave that they have never shared, because it's not necessary. But if they share it on the commentary track, they thought it was funny. You shouldn't go carrying that one around with you.
Yeah.
So, no, but I can see, like, after it comes out of your mouth and you get the reaction, oh my God. I've
didn't
certainly been
sound
there.
right.
On this show, I've been there. It's like, oh God, should I go back and delete it? Someone's going to say something one day, You can't. And
All right.
And to be on the spectrum where you're stuck with it, I can't imagine it's just on instant replay for a while.
Oh, for my life. I still do it. I mean, I'm doing it with you right now.
No,
All right.
this is great. I can tell you right now, Raj Luthra in the chat, more stories, the better, Mitchell. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
we're on to Smallville, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And you want to know
Yeah,
what
how
it
does this
broke through.
connect? Yeah.
Okay, how it connects is I finally realized, like an idiot, that every director is coming onto the set and really counting on you coming up with stuff. And we were reshooting some things with a new director who became the executive producer. I can't remember his name, but he was the showrunner anyway. Really nice guy. And he said, I said, this is the scene where such and such happens. And I wasn't in it. And he said to me, because the reason I said it out loud was I wasn't sure how the scene fit in. It just didn't really, I saw it get made. It wasn't really working for me. And I didn't say that,
It's
but I
James
said, so this
Marshall.
is no, James Marshall
Oh, apologies.
directed one of the
He
half,
became an executive producer later. Sorry.
the
I didn't mean to cut
show,
you off.
the guy that I'm thinking of was a different guy.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Apologize. Go ahead.
He became the showrunner on that show right after that episode. They brought him up from LA for that purpose.
Got it.
Shoot, I can't remember his name.
Well,
But James, anyway, I know
let's get it. I've got the executive producers right here. So, there's a whole list. So, so later they were Michael Tollin, Brian Robbins, Joe Davola, crazy Joe Davola, Greg Beeman, James Marshall, Todd
Greg
Slavkin.
Beeman.
Greg Beeman. All right.
Greg,
I wanted it for the
Greg
record, the
Beeman.
name. Okay.
Greg became the showrunner. He actually
Okay.
worked on the show. And unlike a lot of showrunners, he often stood right there. He started directing some of the episodes. He even wrote some, I think.
Okay.
He just was right on top of that show. And he did some other WB things for them and stuff. And he was very, very good at what he did. But he said to me, Mitchell, I'm counting on you to help me with this scene. And I thought, me? I'm not in it. But he did want me in it, and he had a plan for it, and we did reshoot the scene. But what I realized was, and I talked to another director who said to me one day, we've worked together before. And I said, oh, have we? I'm sorry. He said, I'm going to leave it till the end of the day for you to figure out where it was we met. Okay.
All right, I'll
So
start
that's what
noodling
happens.
that in my subconscious.
Yeah, but we do work with a lot of people, and sometimes it's just for one day, and you do something very emotional and revealing about yourself with somebody for an hour or two, and then you never see them again. It's a
But they can
bizarre
leave an
way
impact
to.
on you like Suzanne Ristic did, Jay Brazeau's wife in White Noise.
Yes, exactly. We had one day of shooting together,
That's
but
enough.
that's
One day's
exactly what it's
enough.
like. So what I realized was, and that was the first time I had no stunt ability because I actually was wearing a cast for a long time for that show under my uniform.
Wow.
I'd gotten older and I'd injured myself. You always injure yourself when you're a stunt man. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Oh, for sure. It's hard work. That's why they pay you good. Things happen.
Yeah. So I listened to Greg.
Yeah.
And I had that experience on Stargate, and I started thinking that what I should be doing is my own thing. I started watching lead actors and I started listening to them, how they spoke about how they translated scripts. And I thought my fidelity to the written word up to this point was like reins pulling back in my mouth. It was holding me back. And I also had, this is going to sound a little bit of an asshole, but I didn't really want the job. It was another comic book, it wasn't going to be any good, I thought. Ended up running 10 years. But I thought it was going to be crap. And then they sent up Greg Beeman, and that just changed everything. But we still had guest directors, and they were always there's always the same parade of directors coming through these shows, right? They always hired the same guys. So I remember that I just started saying whatever I wanted to say, as long as I felt that it fit in with the scene. But it was always more interested, more committed, deeper. And I thought it was providing more than if I had just said the lines that they wrote. Now, Jonathan just leaned right into it. We were rehearsing scenes. We started rehearsing scenes like just before we shoot them to come up with little things that we were going to change and the ways that we were going to act. It made the entire experience of shooting on Smallville one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. And I went into it dreading it, but I was completely free. The funny thing is, when you get a lot of day player actors, a lot of them, as you would suspect, were still stuck in that old mood of me. where they think that they have to stick to the script. And they're used to having people say, hey, you got that word wrong and stuff like that, right? But remember, the rule is as long as it's good, no one will care.
Right. Well, you're
So I
honoring the
actually had,
intention of the document.
yes. Does it add to the story? Does it contribute to the story? Does it fit in with the story? Does it interfere with anything else anyone else is doing? All
Mm-hmm.
those questions you ask yourself, when you satisfy all of those needs, and it gives you a better product. And I believe that that's what good actors actually do. It just took me longer to figure it out. That's all. And
Brad
Jonathan was
Brad
part.
Brad Brad Wright once said to me regarding a an actor uh, who went off script a fair bit. Um, he said, if you're going to make it better, great, all aboard.
Mhm.
If you're changing it just to change it, that pisses me off.
Or
And
if you just
for
forgot.
that could be too. And for me, it would be like, I don't want the writer to feel like they are on some level partly or largely irrelevant by just,
Yeah.
in a sense, disobeying the text. I say
Right.
maybe they wanted this a certain way. So for you to have the impulse to be like, I'm going to do this because I know that it's better, because I know the character. And to
Yeah.
have the people who are in charge of pushing record and pressing stop say, we're leaving it in. That's got to
Yeah.
be rewarding.
Yeah. I think you hit it. You accurately described the situation, and that is that as long as you are improving on that guy's stuff, he's going to love you for it. And I think that
That's
especially
right.
especially experienced writers are going to know that. But I'll also tell you something, little inside thing is that uh, modern television scripts are not written by a guy.
Right.
They're written by a room of about 12 to 14 people.
Yeah.
And
By
and
committee.
I've been heavily involved in writing under those types of circumstances. And the court request that I get via email is, here's the script. We're looking for something between pages 36 and 38.
Wow.
I'll get one and a half.
Why?
Yeah. And I'll send it to them, and they may or may not use it. They may use it partly, but there's a lot of writing that goes on like that. So my point with that is that it's not as if the guy wrote a novel and now someone's changing words in it. He's still the original writer of the episode, still wrote the story start to finish. you know
And you,
we're all
on
just kind
some
of,
levels, are making him look better.
yeah, we're adding to it, we're
Mm-hmm.
augmenting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that anyone who writes in, especially in television, you're shooting those things in 7 to 9 days, and writing in them about four. I think everyone who works in that medium
Mm-hmm.
appreciates those contributions.
And especially like with Richard Dean Anderson in particular, I've used a number of Jackisms in my own daily life. I go and give blood, a fair bit. And if I go to a new place and I'm having a new phlebotomist or whatever, I borrow one of Jack's lines, just really jam it in there.
Yeah,
And I went to the person who wrote that episode, and she was like, "That was Rick. That was not me."
awesome.
Those are gifts,
Yeah,
well
they are.
received.
Well, you see, the whoever's going to do the editing, and usually the director is involved in the editing, but other people are involved in the editing as well. Sometimes depends on how big the show is. If they don't like it, a lot of times they can leave it out without negatively affecting the script
Right,
anyway.
for sure.
Just leave it out. I remember I said once, I was with a younger detective, and it was in a different show. I don't remember the name of it,
Hmm.
but we were searching this room, and didn't have a warrant, so we shouldn't really be shooting there. And the younger guy who's with me says, "Yeah, I'm gonna tell him that we have a warrant, even though we don't have a warrant." And I said, "Well, you could tell him you got a college degree, because that's even more powerful." And that was not in the script. I just said it, and it was in one of the takes. And the actor who I was working with shook his head at me, and he was pissed off. But it's in the movie,
Because it's
right?
real. If it's either
Obviously,
real or it
somebody
looks
liked
real,
it.
yeah, that's right. Somebody
You,
liked
and
it,
well, those decisions are made by committee. A lot of people had to like it.
for
Right?
sure. Wow. It's a
Anyway,
little scary though. I mean, they're like they'll come to you with yeah, we don't know what to put here. Like, what would go here? Part of me would be like, okay, why don't you know what to put
yeah.
there? Aren't you the right person for this job? You know,
Yeah,
I would be thinking
exactly.
that a fair bit, and I have been seeing a lot of that more and more in terms of like discussions online, or people like, this doesn't feel like right, you know, and
Yeah,
writers will go on and answer questions like, well, you know, we just felt this, or we didn't really know, and it's like, how could you not
yeah.
know?
Oops.
Haven't you lived and breathed this material? You know,
Yeah,
where, and with AI now, you know, taking over so much
yeah,
of things, I don't know if you unring a lot of these bells. You know, I think a lot
yeah.
of competent writers, the Rob Coopers of the world, are going away.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not good.
Well, I know that they have to write them as a committee like that, just simply because of the volume of scripts they have to
That's true.
produce. When you know, if you are going to write something that's very original, you probably worked on it for a decade and you now have 8 episodes,
That's true.
then that's something really great. If it gets picked up for the next season, you now have about 4 months to imitate what you just did over the past 10 years. It's
Mm,
impossible. So you have to have a different process for writing those scripts. And that's why a lot of shows don't necessarily get better in the second season.
for sure. Yeah, I understand
Well,
that.
anyway,
Peace Writer wants to know, Mitchell, we love stories. You're so awesome. Do you have a funny story from MacGyver, or maybe another time that you ran into Rick?
let me see what I wrote notes to make sure I can tell things here. Let me
Hey,
see
there
what
you
I'm
go.
talking
That's my
about.
guy.
Oh, it's not funny, but it's freaking remarkable.
Remarkable is good. I like that.
Okay, Bob, step in the foot. Oh, on very quickly on that wise guy thing where I thought I was really cool and I was kicking Glenn Fry in the head while Debbie Harry screamed. I ripped my pants wide open and it was on a public street standing in downtown Vancouver and I'm there with my underwear showing.
Well, at least you
Um,
weren't commando.
yeah, that's right.
Count your blessings.
There you go. Now, what was I going to say? Oh, I forgot.
MacGyver
I
or Rick? You said there was
I
something
said
poignant or remarkable. Remarkable was your word.
remarkable.
Hmm.
Oh shoot. Let me look through this again. Maybe I'll remember. Oh, okay. This was another really big. I keep kicking my printer here.
You're fine.
This was another really big deal for me. I was telling you that Greg Beeman made an episode that was kind of focused around me. I end up framing Jonathan for shooting Lionel Luther,
Yes.
but um, Clark figures it out
Yep.
and catches me in the hospital room where I'm about to try again, or I think I'm trying to kill Lionel again because it didn't quite kill
He
him
sees what
in the
this guy
first
really
places.
is, but, you know,
Yeah.
Mr. Perfect has
So
to come in and screw things up.
yeah.
Mr. Perfect.
So you try to, as an actor, you stop trying to control your emotions. So if you feel like you're going to cry, and now I've been doing this for 60 odd years, well, 50 odd years, I guess, then because it's a very profound and
Yeah.
obvious and difficult to summon emotion that you try to let it come up. So if you go to family funerals or something bad happens or something like that, you don't try to control it, which is the natural person's impulse. You actually lean into it.
You're there to permit yourself to do just those things. That's why
Yes.
you're
So
there, to say
so
goodbye.
you learn
Yeah.
how to in real circumstances where you're feeling real emotion, how to let that emotion come out. And then what you do is you it becomes closer to the surface. So you find it easier to invest in the written word and made up circumstances and still cry there because you can think about it. You can now imagine it, whereas before you're always holding it down, right?
Hmm.
And Tom Welling, I can tell you some funny Tom Welling stories. My brother's a bodyguard to the two guys on Supernatural, and he
Hmm.
got called to Jared Padalecki's house because the police caught a guy smashing the window and broke into Jared Padalecki's house, and they
Whoa.
came. So my brother comes down because the guy says that he knows Jared Padalecki, and my brother
Then
comes down.
knock.
Then the two cops, and it's Tom Welling in handcuffs. And he decided that he wanted to get a video game back that he'd lent to Jared because he lived across the street pretty much on Marine Drive there. He smashed the window to get in and took the video game. So, but anyway, Tom is a really super nice guy. I hope
Wow,
he
when
gets
he's not
another good
breaking
season.
windows for Nintendo
Yeah,
games.
yeah, funny guy
Wow.
too. Shit, he was funny. But anyway,
Man.
we're doing the scene in that episode of Smallville where I get caught
Hmm.
by Clark and I break down a bit. They don't show it in the actual scene, they edited it out, but I broke down even more. They showed a little bit of it, but obviously I had very real emotion on my face. One of the things that can make me cry, I found out when I started experimenting it with, was when someone says something really nice to me. I will cry.
Mm.
So that's kind of like the circumstance where I was doing the Halloween thing to be the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
It looks the same. It's still
Mm-hmm.
crying, right? So I was trying to do that, and we're working on this episode, and that was another episode that we shot for months and months and months and kept reshooting
Wow.
because it was a who done it, and they kept changing who killed it.
Oh.
Um, yeah. Um,
Hey, my
Sean
number's up.
Connery's Sean Connery's son Patrick was originally hired as the bad guy who shot Lionel Luthor, and they changed it to me, and then wrote me out of the next episode, and I was done. So
Wow.
we're shooting this scene. I was heartbroken by it.
Yeah.
I found out in a very horrible way. One of the Teamsters said something to me because he had got a copy of the script, and it showed where I leave the show.
Wow.
And that's how I found out in my little village of Fort Langley, just outside of Vancouver. And I got a call from the props department. They wanted some old pictures of me because they were going to show Jonathan and I in high school together. And I said, I'll send those to you, no problem. But read the last page of the script to me.
Absolutely. You want them?
And that was it. And I
Wow.
was done. And so I worked the next 3 months knowing that my job was over. But we were shooting this bit where I'm supposed to get really upset because I couldn't kill Lionel Luthor, and I really wanted to have a shitload of emotion there. I
Oh,
wanted to
so
go
you
over
had
the
a.
top.
Oh, okay. Did Tom stop? Did Clark stop you, or did you stop yourself in that scene? I don't remember.
Clark stopped me. He caught me in
Okay.
the dark.
So you're
Remember the
not only
hand turning the
caught,
blinds?
but yeah,
Yeah.
and you're
And then the
embarrassed,
gun
but
comes
yeah.
out, and then Clark turns on the light, throws me in against the wall. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
lying on the ground, you know, coming up with as much emotion as I can, and we're shooting it, and we're shooting it, and we're shooting it, and we're shooting it. Running out of gas. So
Yeah.
I know that something happy can make me cry too. So I'm on the ground. I can't think of what to do. For whatever reason, the whole friggin' cast and crew are standing there watching the scene. And oh God, I get emotional every time I think about it. I said, I look up from the floor like this, and I looked Tom in the eye and I said, say something nice. He didn't hesitate. He said, it's absolute fucking bullshit that you're getting put off this show after you do such a great job. And of course, I just fucking fountain come out of my eyes. It was amazing, like it is right now. That's the problem. Once you learn how to do it, it's hard to stop, you
The
know?
the right um, peer knows how to say the right thing to get you where you need to go over that finish line.
He was, it was like that. There was no hesitation, no other question. He
Not every
just
actor
said
will
it.
do that.
He was great.
Wow. I've heard
Loved the guy
wonderful
from that
things
day
about
on.
him. Yeah. Yeah. This is how you build, you know, relationships where people will walk over hot coals, you know,
Yep.
to get whatever you need because you have been there
Trust.
for them. That's exactly right. Yeah. They know your
Yep.
character. Wow. Mitchell,
Yep.
Mitch, um, uh, I wasn't expecting the conversation that we had, and it means so much to me that you were so willing to go um, really, really. You took the ball and delivered us a touchdown here with this. I was hoping to get some wonderful stories, and you have provided that gift to us in spades, particularly with heroes. This is an episode that is hugely important to fandom, and you have left us with so much to think about and so many reasons to go back and watch again. So it
Well,
means a
thank you.
lot to have you, sir, and I really appreciate you being so forthcoming.
Well, it was fun for me going down memory lane because I haven't acted since 2005. I've
Doesn't
been
mean
on
you
the
still
other show.
can't when something comes along. It's like, I want that, or someone says, "Hey, We got another Stargate coming back. That's one of the things that someone did ask you here. Raj Luthra, if Stargate were to return in some way, would you come back? Would you be willing to come back in another role if they asked you?
Well,
They made it work for you?
what's the general's name? He was a friend of my dad's,
Don S.
actually.
Davis. Don Davis. Hammond.
Don Davis taught
Yeah.
in the theater department at the University of British Columbia,
He
which is
did.
the university I went to. He's friends with my dad. Super nice guy.
Yeah.
And near the end, he wasn't all that well, but he'd always be in there with that amazing voice. And he'd have a few lines, and they were always impactful lines and impactful scenes, even though he was this old guy. That's a dream that I admit I have, is to come back in some show and have that kind of impact, like that. I probably couldn't do a very large role anyway, but
Right.
I could do a little thing. It would be a lot of fun
A
if
little thing
anybody
that
offered. But
represents a big thing. Yeah.
yeah, the problem is that when you're out of the loop for getting
Mm,
hired, you're out of the loop for getting hired. And one of the things that, we kind of touched on it earlier when we talked about actors, and that they can achieve certain things, even though you aren't sure what they're going to come up with, you can count on them to make the script a little bit better and make the character a little bit better than you already got as the director and writer. He's going to augment it, right? And that's why actors end up working for the same people a fair amount, people that trust them to do their job. And they kind of get slotted into similar roles because they say,
mm,
oh, yeah, he did that on that show. He should be good at this on this show. And as unfortunate as that is with regard to people who are trying to expand their horizons and stuff, you can totally understand. It's that trust thing again. You're trying to complete the project, you want it to be good. So you're going to picture people in certain roles. And I'm out of the loop. So,
right. But, you know, at a certain point in your life, and you may have had this point all this these thoughts already. We recognize the number of days ahead are fewer than there are behind, and what is it that I want to do with the remainder of the healthy time that I have
yes,
left, not just the time that I have
exactly.
left, and what do I want to leave, if anything?
Hmm.
So our choices become more critical the older we get, and they're harder to control Z undo, as it were.
Yeah,
But you know
I
what?
agree.
I wouldn't necessarily think that you're completely out of the loop on something that you've been as passionate about since you were 6 years old. I think it's just the right thing might come along. Uh,
Well, what I meant by out of the loop is that, see, when guys are casting, they need to know where people are in the geography and where the
I
people
see.
are where they're working. And the casting director's job, although people misunderstand, the casting director does not pick the actors. The casting director presents usually 8x10s and puts them on the director's desk, or sometimes producers and stuff, but particularly the director's desk. And he or she will look at those pictures. And sometimes it's a stack for a particular role. My photo is no longer in that loop.
Rotation. Understood.
Yeah, not in the rotation.
Got
Exactly.
it. Got it.
So it won't even come up. They might think I'm dead.
Well, none of us do. And you're doing something that you're passionate about. You're doing something that you'd be doing anyway for free. As far as I am concerned, that is a blessing. So,
Yes, and I am the when you eventually get to see it, the thing that I'm producing is something I'm very proud of. So
will you please
it'll happen.
let me know? So
Okay.
I'm juggling a few of you. I want to make sure that I see it.
Okay. If it happens, I will definitely let you know.
Absolutely, it means a lot to have you on. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up on this end, but
Yeah,
thank you
thank
for
you.
joining me.
Thank you very much. And bye to whoever watched.
We got a crowd. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
That was Mitchell Kosterman. He played Colonel Tom Rundell, Cheyenne Mountain Public Affairs Liaison in Heroes, and Special Agent James Hamner in season three's Seth. Really appreciate you tuning in. My name is David Reed. You're watching the Stargate Oral History Project. I am so blessed to have a wonderful team of people who help me week after week pulling this show off, and I could not do it without their help. My producers, Anthony Rowling, Kevin Weaver, and Linda Gabber Fury. My moderating team, Anthony, Jeremy, Kevin, Lockwatcher, Marcia, Raj, and Jacob. and Frederick Marcoux, who keeps DialTheGate.com's lights up and running. If you enjoy this show and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that like button. It does help with the show and will continue to help us grow our audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. And clips from this live stream will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. This coming week, ellipses, we have Tomo Pennicott joining us on July the 6th, which happens to be my birthday, at 3 p.m. Pacific time. He played third in SG-1, but most of you probably remember him as Hilo in Battlestar Galactica. Tomo came on, I believe it was last year, and we really hit it off. And he said he wanted to come back, and so he is. So we're going to talk a little bit more about a wider variety of topics. And I'm hopeful, this is between you and me and the lamppost, that he will be instrumental in getting us Grace Park, who played Satterfield in the season 5 episode Brain Fart. That's not the name of the episode. Proving Ground. It's getting harder and harder as I get older. They used to be right there, and they are not anymore. So we'll see. But Tomo is going to be coming back, and we're going to get to know each other a little bit better. And that one's going to be live on Sunday, July the 6th. We've got an episode of German Stargate Fandom coming up in July. That one's actually in the hard drive right now. I actually need to sit down and edit it together. But that was a fun one. And Wormhole Extremist is going to be resuming with New Order Parts 1 and 2 next Sunday, July the 6th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. My tremendous thanks to Mitch Kosterman for joining us and being so willing to share so much for 90 minutes. You never know when you're going to meet someone that you really connect with. And I was hopeful going in that we would walk away with some great stories from Heroes, and he did not disappoint. In fact, it's got me thinking about an idea. I'd love to do some kind of roundtable with the folks who made Heroes possible, from Robert to Andy to Saul to Mitch. I don't want it to be too big, but let's see what we can get. Let me run it by Rob. He may not be game, but let's see if he is, because Rob Cooper would have to be involved. And I meant to ask Mitch that as well, but can't get everything finished all at the same time. I appreciate you tuning in for this episode. We've got more heading your way in Season 5 as we move into the second half of the year. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate, and I will see you on the other side.